Not too long, Nengi began to act strange. She started begging the men to sleep with her. One of the men there, named Osita, knew something was wrong because he knew Nengi from the festival to be a very decent girl. He begged the rest not to touch Nengi, but once upon a time, there lived a girl named Nengi. Nengi possessed an ethereal beauty that transcended the ordinary. Her eyes sparkled like the clearest diamond. Her smile was a radiant beacon, capable of brightening even the darkest of days. Nengi was an orphan and the only grandchild of her grandparents. Her grandfather was a hunter, while her grandmother was the village herbalist. In Akoko, Nengi was the most beautiful girl. Every movement she made was a graceful dance, and her presence alone would make the most mundane surrounding feel like a scene from a fairy tale. She was quite simply a vision of perfection. Everyone in the village, from the toddlers to the elders, admired her so much. Ninki was a very hardworking girl, and she was very compassionate. She offered help to the needy, which made the elders to use her as an example in raising their children. Nengi's grandparents treated her like a princess that she was. She was pampered and showered with love, as there was no other grandchild to share the love with. She was raised in a way that any man who married her would be envied and blessed. They wished for her to meet a good husband who will cherish her and protect her when the time for marriage comes. Nengi was respected in the village, and parents wished for their children to be like her. But this was short-lived when Nengi crossed paths with Ame in the stream. Ame was a very beautiful girl from a rich home. Her father owned a lot of cassava farms in the village, while her mother stayed at home to look after her and her siblings. Ame wore the most expensive clothes and jewelries, but Ame was possessed with a jealous spirit that no one knew of. Most of her life, she always heard about Nengi and how much of a perfect child she was. No one is perfect. I will prove that to the villagers. Ame said to herself, promising to show Nengi's true colors. One day, when Nengi came to the stream to fetch some water, she saw Ame. Humbled and respectful as she was, she greeted her with a warm smile as she always does. Ame replied her warmly and complimented her weight speed. When she was about leaving, Ame offered to help her as she was carrying two buckets. Nengi was so happy and she accepted. On their way home, they began to talk. Ame asked Nengi to be her friend, stating that she had no friend in the village. Nengi was surprised because Ame was like a princess in the village and anyone would be happy to have her as a friend. She was excited and she accepted to be friends with Ame. When she got home, she told the news to her grandmother. Her grandmother was happy for her, but advised her to always remember all that she was taught and not to be carried away with wealth and shiny things, as some people cannot be trusted entirely. Nengi was carried away with excitement. She told her grandmother that Ame was kind, citing that she offered to help her carry her water home. Her grandmother acknowledged it and advised her to be careful as all that glittered was not gold. Not too long, she started spending time with Ame. They would play and explore the village together. Ame would give some of her jewelries to Nengi, all of which her grandmother would ask her to return, as she never wanted her to feel like she was less privileged. Because of this, Nengi began to hide things from her grandmother, and whenever she was with Ame, she would wear them. Not too long, Nengi and Ame became very good friends. In fact, they became inseparable. Unknown to Nengi, Ame's friendship was just a bet to make her make a huge mistake that would change her life. One day, Ame invited Nengi to a village festival in the neighboring village. Nengi refused, stating that her grandparents would not agree. You don't have to tell them. We'll leave in the morning after you finish your chores, and we'll come back in the afternoon before your grandparents even notice your whereabouts. It will be fun. I attended last year and it was the best, Ame said to Nengi. Nengi hesitated, but after so much persuasion from Ame, she agreed and they both went to the festival together. At the festival, Nengi's beauty caught the eyes of all attendees, both male and female, and they began to talk about her. All the men at the festival were drawn to her beauty and perfect figure. Nengi was uncomfortable, as that was not the life she was used to. She told Ame about it. Ame was angry but showed no emotion. Ame persuaded her to stay a bit longer, saying that her beauty mesmerized them and that she should enjoy every moment and attention. Nengi was happy and she began to talk to them. When they were about leaving, Nengi met a young handsome boy named Kofi. He was the crown prince of the village. They talked for a while, after which Nengi begged to take her leave. Kofi asked her to visit again, as they became new friends, and Nengi promised that they will, and they bid each other goodbye. On their way back to the village, Ame was so jealous because she always had a crush on the prince, and it was obvious that Nengi had gotten in her way. And so, she came up with a bad idea to separate the two forever. She told Nengi that Kofi was no match for her and that he was a bad boy who was specialized in using innocent girls and abandoning them. It's obvious you are the next target, Ame said to Nengi. Nengi was so sad. She took Ame's advice and stayed away from Kofi. I'm just 17 and shouldn't be thinking about boys at this age, she said to herself and thanked Ame for saving her from Kofi. Nengi began to enjoy her new life with Ame. Her way of life began to change. She would ignore her grandparents' advice and leave the house without telling them. The once respectful, hardworking Nengi changed. She began to live life on her own terms. And not too long, the entire village began to notice, but Nengi did not care. When Nengi was now deeply invested in the friendship, Ame decided to carry out the last phase of her plan. She invited Nengi to a party as usual. Nengi was so happy and she dressed beautifully for the occasion. When Nengi got to the party, she saw unfamiliar faces. She asked Ame who they were, and Ame told her that they were her friends. Nengi was surprised because Ame had no friend that she was aware of. Maybe she met them recently, Nengi said to herself as she began to enjoy the party. After some time, Ame poured her some drink. Nengi hesitated at first but later drank it. Unknown to her, Ame had laced the drink with some aphrodisiac and sleeping herbs. After some time, she left Nengi behind at the party and secretly hid herself in the bush close by, where she watched them. Not too long, Nengi began to act strange. She started begging the men to sleep with her. One of the men there, named Osita, knew something was wrong because he knew Nengi from the festival to be a very decent girl. He begged the rest not to touch Nengi, but they refused. Osita tried to stop them, but they ignored him and a fight broke out, which led to Osita getting badly injured and knocked out. Still, the aphrodisiac made Nengi to continue begging them. Moments later, the cloud became dark as poor Nengi gave her innocence away To strange men, Ame went home with a sense of satisfaction. Her pride is gone. She is nothing but a used commodity, Ame said to herself. Later that evening, Nengi woke up and found herself drenched in her own blood, a sign of her lost innocence. She panicked and screamed, feeling disgusted with no memory of what had happened. Nengi went home, ashamed. She quickly washed herself and went to Ame's house. She asked Ame what had happened, but Ame lied to her. She told her that she had no idea of what had happened. Nengi explained everything to her, but Ame pretended not to be aware. She begged Ame to keep the secret between them, as it might ruin her. Nengi was broken. She kept herself locked up in her room for days, feeling disgusted and unable to remember how the incident took place or who took her pride. Her grandmother noticed the change in behavior and asked Nengi if all was well, but Nengi kept the secret to herself. Few weeks later, Nengi discovered that she was pregnant. Her world came crashing down. She realized the shame she had brought to her family. Nengi was heartbroken and confused. She thought of what would become of her if her grandparents found out about the pregnancy, and so she decided to terminate it. She sought help from her friend Ame, who gave her some herbs to take. Nengi took the herbs, hoping to end her misery, but her body was too weak. She fainted and she was immediately rushed to her grandmother's place, where she was given proper herbs to stabilize her. When she woke up, her grandmother expressed her disappointment in her. After all we did for you, we gave you all the love you needed and raised you the right way to be a good example in the community, but you paid us back with disgrace, a child born out of wedlock, Nengi's grandfather said as they all began to cry. Nengi apologized to her grandparents and explained how she could not remember the event. Meanwhile, the news of Nengi being pregnant spread like wildfire, courtesy of Ame, who waited for long to humiliate her. Everyone who saw her were disappointed. The once adored beauty in the village became an object of ridicule. When Nengi's grandparents saw that the humiliation was too much, they decided to stand by her and support her all through the pregnancy. My child, you have made a great mistake, one that you will remember for the rest of your life, and you must face the consequence. But that is not the end of the world. It is not how you fall that matters, but how you rise again. We will give you all the love and support you need. But you must brace up and face your reality, Negi's grandfather said to her as he hugged her tightly. Meanwhile, Osita, the injured man from the day of the incident, heard about Negi's pregnancy from Prince Kofi, who was displeased about the news. Kofi was heartbroken as he had got to love Nengi. He told Osita about it. Osita was sad and confused, and he narrated the incident that occurred that day to Prince Kofi, insisting that someone had a hand in it because the Nengi they knew was decent, and Ame was known by them for her deceptive and manipulative acts, reason Prince Kofi stopped being friends with her. Osita and Kofi decided to pay a visit to Nengi. Nengi was surprised to see them and she welcomed them warmly. Osita asked her if she could recall what happened that day, but Nengi could not. The only thing she could remember was drinking what Ame gave to her. Nengi, I think you were set up by your friend Ame, Osita said as he continued to narrate what had happened, recalling how Ame left her behind with total strangers and what they did to him also. The only reason I was there that day was because I wanted to see your face again and to be your friend after the festival. Ame told me that she could organize our meeting, but I never knew this was her plan. I was also surprised to see other men as their faces were unfamiliar. But I begged and fought them to leave you alone. But they refused and knocked me out. This was a clear case of setup, and I believe you, Osita said to Nengi as her memory became clearer. Nengi called her grandparents and told them all that Osita had said. I always knew that girl could not be trusted, but I never knew she was this evil, Nengi's grandmother exclaimed. We must find her and make her pay for what she had done. Nengi's grandmother, being a respectful woman in the village, went to the chiefs and told them all that had happened. And they told the king. Ame and her parents were summoned. When she came, she was asked to say the truth, but Ame denied, saying she was innocent. The king asked Ame, Nengi, and Osita to swear their innocence, and they all did. Few moments later, Ame started screaming. After a while, she began to confess her evil, stating it was an act of jealousy. Everyone around were shocked, including Ame's parents. Not too long, Ame became mad. She stripped herself naked and began to roam in the village. All who saw her laid a curse on her and warned their children to stay away from the likes of her. The king placed a bounty on her cohorts, and not too long, they were found and brought to book. The villagers apologized for humiliating Nengi. They offered their support, but Nengi never remained the same. Not a day passed that she did not remember the evil that was done to her by her so-called friend Ame. She regretted not taking her grandparents' advice, but it was too late. Osita and Prince Kofi came from time to time to visit Nengi and to show her love and support. This is the end of this story. The moral lesson of this story is the importance of listening to wise counsel, staying true to one's value despite external influence, understanding the far-reaching consequence of our choices, and recognizing true friendship. Thank you for listening to this story. If you want us to make more videos, hit on the like and subscribe button. And do not forget to share this video, as people may learn a lot from it. We love and appreciate you. Bye.